The top 10 most impactful Johnny Carson moments. What happens when the unflappable king of late night completely loses control? For 30 years, Johnny Carson defined cool professionalism. But sometimes, even he cracked up, laughing so hard he couldn't breathe, tearing up in front of millions, or saying something so shocking it made headlines for years. Tonight, we're diving into the 10 most unforgettable Johnny Carson moments ever caught on live television. And trust me, number 8 shocked the entire nation. For 3 decades, Johnny Carson was the face of late-night television. Night after night, America tuned in to see him glide through monologues, banter with guests, and keep his cool no matter what chaos unfolded on stage. He was polished, professional, and seemingly unshakable. But even the smoothest host in TV history had moments when the mask slipped, when laughter took over, when emotion broke through, or when the unpredictable magic of live television created something no writer's room could plan. These are the top 10 most culturally impactful moments from Johnny Carson's Tonight Show reign. 10 times when Johnny, his guests, and the audience shared unscripted history that still echoes today. Number 1. The most legendary blooper in TV history. In 1965, Ed Ames came on to demonstrate tomahawk throwing and hurled it straight into the crotch of a wooden target. Funny enough on its own, but when Johnny collapsed into a 3-minute laughing fit, it became one of television's most iconic moments. His perfect quip, "I didn't even know you were Jewish," sealed it as comedy gold. In April 1965, actor Ed Ames came on The Tonight Show to demonstrate tomahawk throwing, a skill he regularly used as his character Mingo on the frontier drama Daniel Boone. A wooden cowboy silhouette was wheeled out as the target. Ames explained the technique, wound up, and threw. The tomahawk sailed across the stage with perfect precision and landed directly in the target's crotch. The audience roared with laughter. But what made the incident legendary wasn't the throw, it was Johnny's reaction. Carson broke down. He bent over, slapped his desk, and laughed harder than he ever had on television. The laughter went on for nearly 3 full minutes, an eternity on live TV. Tears streamed down his face. Every time he tried to compose himself, he'd look back at the unfortunate target and collapse again. Finally, catching his breath, he delivered the perfect line. "I didn't even know you were Jewish." The audience exploded into fresh laughter. That moment became one of the most replayed bloopers in television history, so iconic that it was shown again during Carson's farewell week in 1992. It wasn't just funny, it revealed Johnny as a real human being, unable to hold back pure, unfiltered laughter. In an age of controlled television personas, this was authenticity, and it made Johnny even more beloved. Number 2. The farewell that made Carson cry. Carson rarely showed emotion, but when Bette Midler sang "One for My Baby" during his penultimate show, and Johnny's eyes filled with tears. For once, the mask slipped. When she finished, all he could whisper was, "I can't top that." It was the goodbye of a lifetime. By 1992, America knew the end was near. After 30 years, Johnny Carson was preparing to leave late night behind. His final shows were packed with big-name guests, but one appearance stood apart. On the second-to-last show, Bette Midler joined Johnny for what everyone expected to be light-hearted banter. Instead, she gave him, and the world, something unforgettable. As their segment wound down, Midler told Johnny she wanted to sing something special. She turned toward him and began softly singing, "One for my baby and one more for the road." The studio fell silent. Carson's eyes welled with tears. For the first time in his career, he didn't hide his emotions. There was no quip, no quick pivot, just Johnny Carson, raw, vulnerable, and saying goodbye not just to a guest, but to 3 decades of his life. When she finished, Carson leaned forward, kissed her hand, and whispered, "I can't top that." It was a farewell like no other, a moment of rare intimacy shared with millions of viewers. More than 30 years later, it's still remembered as one of the most moving goodbyes in television history. Number 3. The comment that sparked a firestorm, back when Dolly Parton visited The Tonight Show, Johnny looked at her and said, "I'd give a year of my life to peek under that blouse." The audience gasped. Dolly laughed it off, but the remark generated massive viewer mail and debate. It revealed how quickly cultural standards were changing and how even Johnny could misstep. In 1977, Dolly Parton was at the height of her fame, known both for her powerhouse voice and her curvaceous figure. When she appeared on The Tonight Show, Johnny welcomed her with his usual charm and playful banter. But then he made a remark that would follow him for decades. Looking at Dolly's outfit, he said, "I'd give a year of my life to peek under that blouse." The audience gasped, then laughed nervously. Dolly, quick on her feet, chuckled and handled it with grace. But behind the laughter, the moment struck a nerve. Viewer mail poured in, some praising Johnny's candor, others condemning him for crossing the line. It was a cultural turning point. In the 1960s, a comment like that might have passed without question. By the late 70s, standards were shifting. What was once cheeky was now being re-examined under the lens of respect, gender, and propriety on national television. Dolly herself later said she wasn't offended, and even took it as a compliment. But the controversy showed that Carson, usually a master at knowing where the line was, had momentarily misstepped. That slip became one of the most talked-about moments of his career, a reminder that even television's smoothest operator wasn't immune to cultural change.
Number 4.
The guest who took over the show. From the moment that Robin Williams sat down, The Tonight Show was never the same. He leapt from his chair, riffed non-stop, and turned Carson's desk into his own little stage. Producers panicked. Johnny leaned back, wiped away tears of laughter, and let Robin run wild. It was chaos, brilliance, and proof that sometimes the best TV comes when the host gives up control. Very few guests ever challenged Johnny Carson the way Robin Williams did. Robin's appearances were pure mayhem. He didn't just sit and answer questions, he exploded onto the set, ricocheting between impressions, physical comedy, and lightning-fast improvisations. Producers panicked in the control room, unsure if they should cut to commercial. But Johnny waved them off. He leaned back, laughed until tears ran down his cheeks, and let Robin take over. Carson later said, having Robin on the show was like trying to catch lightning in a bottle while it's already running away. For a host who prided himself on control, surrendering to Robin's chaos was rare, and audiences loved it. Robin's appearances weren't just interviews, they were events. They reminded viewers that live television could be unpredictable, unscripted, and utterly alive.
Number 5.
A poem that brought Johnny to tears. Jimmy Stewart once read a heartfelt poem on the show about his late dog, Bo. The audience expected a lighthearted story. Instead, Stewart's words about love and loss silenced the room. When the camera cut to Johnny, his eyes glistened. He didn't deflect. He didn't joke. He let the emotions sit. A rare, vulnerable moment that viewers never forgot. Jimmy Stewart was no stranger to The Tonight Show. The beloved actor's slow, deliberate delivery was always a hit with Carson's audience. But in 1981, Stewart brought something deeply personal. He told Johnny he'd written a poem about his dog, Bo, who had recently passed away. Johnny expected a lighthearted story. Instead, Stewart began reading verses about love, loyalty, and loss. There are nights when I think I feel that stare, and I reach out my hand to stroke his hair, but he's not there. Oh, how I wish that wasn't so. I'll always love a dog named Bo. The studio was silent. The camera cut to Johnny, and for once The Tonight Show's host was speechless. His eyes glistened with tears. He didn't try to deflect with a joke or rush to commercial. He simply let the moment breathe. In an entertainment world built on punchlines and applause, Stewart and Carson shared something real: grief, love, and humanity. It became one of the most cherished moments in Carson's 30-year run.
Number 6.
The pettiest, funniest payback. Once, back when Don Rickles was guest hosting, he broke Johnny's treasured cigarette box. A few months later, Carson stormed onto the set of Rickles' sitcom mid-scene, live, with the cameras rolling, and confronted him. "You broke my box!" he shouted. Rickles froze. The audience howled. It was Johnny at his most spontaneous, throwing the script out the window for pure comedy. Johnny Carson valued order. His desk was neatly arranged, and one of his prized possessions was a wooden cigarette box. In 1973, Don Rickles guest hosted The Tonight Show and accidentally broke the box. Carson wasn't pleased. He mentioned it on air the next night, promising payback. A few months later, he got his chance. While taping nearby, Rickles was filming his sitcom, CPO Sharky. During a Tonight Show commercial break, Johnny grabbed a camera crew and marched across the studio lot. He burst into Rickles' live taping mid-scene. The audience had no idea what was happening as Johnny stormed the set and confronted Rickles. "You broke my box." Rickles stammered, Carson scolded, and the audience howled. It was spontaneous, chaotic, and hilarious. More importantly, it showed a different side of Johnny, a host willing to toss the format out the window for the sake of comedy. Number 7. The monkey that wrecked Johnny's hair. One time, a capuchin monkey leapt onto Carson's head during an animal segment. For a man famous for his perfectly styled hair, it was chaos. But Johnny stayed deadpan until the monkey climbed down, then delivered the line, "And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why I prefer cats." Instantly, it became one of his most replayed clips. Animal segments were a Tonight Show staple, often producing unpredictable results. But one in 1979 became legendary. Animal handler Joanne Steele brought a capuchin monkey to the set. At first, the monkey sat calmly. Then, without warning, it leapt onto Johnny Carson's head. For a man known for immaculate hair, this was disaster. The monkey tugged, climbed, and thoroughly disheveled Carson's perfect coif. Johnny sat dead still, a look of resigned amusement on his face, as the audience erupted in laughter. When the monkey was finally retrieved, Johnny looked into the camera, his hair standing every which way, and delivered the perfect line. "And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why I prefer cats." That was Johnny's gift, finding humor in chaos, keeping his composure, and turning accidents into unforgettable comedy. Number 8. The remark that shocked the nation. Steve Martin announced a magic act. Instead, he unzipped his fly and pulled out eggs, a salt shaker, even a ringing telephone. Johnny started straight-faced, but by the end he was doubled over with genuine laughter. For Carson, who'd seen every routine in the business, this bizarre, unforgettable bit proved that true originality could still surprise him. By 1980, Steve Martin was already carving out his place as a comedy innovator, blending absurdity with anti-comedy. When he told Carson he'd perform a magic act, Johnny expected sleight of hand. What he got was surreal genius. Martin unzipped his fly and began pulling out objects: eggs, a salt shaker, even a ringing telephone. At one point, a tiny hand poked out and waved to the audience. Carson started as the straight man, playing along politely, but as the routine escalated, he lost it. He bent over laughing, not as the host, but as a man genuinely caught off guard by Martin's creativity. After thousands of comedians had passed through his stage, Carson was rarely surprised. Steve Martin managed to do it, and the moment became one of his most famous Tonight Show appearances. Number 9. The roast that could have gone wrong. Frank Sinatra wasn't really known for tolerating insults, but in 1976, Don Rickles roasted him mercilessly right on Carson's couch. Johnny looked nervous while the audience held its breath. Then Sinatra broke into laughter, showing even the most untouchable star could take a joke, at least when Rickles was delivering it. Frank Sinatra was untouchable, powerful, intimidating, and rarely the butt of jokes. But in 1976, Don Rickles sat beside him on the Tonight Show couch and went for it anyway. "Look at him," Rickles said. "Everybody thinks he's so wonderful. Let me tell you, this man is overrated." Carson laughed nervously. The studio tensed. Sinatra wasn't known for tolerating insults. Rickles pushed further, grabbing Sinatra's knee and pleading, "Frank, you know I love you. Can I get a ride home?" The risk paid off. Sinatra burst into laughter. The tension evaporated. What made the moment special wasn't just the comedy, it was the cultural significance. Sinatra, the ultimate star, let himself be roasted, proving that on Carson's stage, no one was too big to laugh at themselves.
Number 10.
The legend who stayed too long. At the end of a funny and entertaining run, Bob Hope's Tonight Show appearances had turned awkward. Reading cue cards, telling stale jokes, the magic was gone. Carson smiled politely but couldn't hide his discomfort. Backstage, he muttered, "Hope doesn't listen, he just talks." It was sobering, not funny, but impactful. Bob Hope was one of the most beloved entertainers in American history. He'd been a Tonight Show staple, delivering fast jokes and golf stories for decades. But by the 1980s, age was catching up with him. Hope appeared on the show reading jokes from cue cards, recycling material that no longer landed. The audience chuckled politely, but the spark was gone. Carson smiled and played along, but his body language betrayed his discomfort. After one particularly weak appearance, he muttered backstage, "Hope doesn't listen, he just talks." It wasn't funny, but it was powerful. The decline of Bob Hope reminded viewers, and perhaps Carson himself, that comedy has a shelf life. It was a sobering reminder that even legends fade, and one day, Johnny would too. From uncontrollable laughter to tearful goodbyes, from controversial remarks to fearless roasts, Johnny Carson gave America 3 decades of unforgettable television. They weren't scripted, they weren't polished, but they were real. And that's why they still echo today. Johnny wasn't just the king of late night. He was the king of unscripted television magic.